He was not a superstitious man, only a man who liked to walk after his day's work and count how many stars made it through the Cotswold haze. He took the river path without a lantern, trusting his feet to the ground he knew. The cold ran beside him, first with a friendly chuckle, then quieter, as if the fields were listening. At the bend, where the water widens and slows, a figure stood. Dark coat, hat pulled low, not moving. The walker's heart gave a practical thud, not fear so much as caution. "Evening," he called. The figure did not answer. It turned slightly, enough to let the walker know it had heard, and resumed its stillness. He passed, eyes forward, counting steps. When he glanced back, the walker had not turned to follow. He thought no more of it until the second night, when the watcher stood in the same place, same pose, looking across the water, as if something on the far bank might remember his name. On the third night, the walker brought his brother, a louder sort who liked to lark and throw his voice across the water to hear it come back improved. "There," the walker said, nodding. "Where?" "At the bend. Don't you—" But his brother saw only water and reed. "You want your eyes tested." They went home arguing cheerfully about nothing, which is the best sort of argument. On the fourth night, frost came thin as flour to the path. The watcher stood again, square to the ford that was no longer a ford, for the river had shifted its mind and given the village a safer bridge. The walker stopped at a respectful distance. "Are you waiting?" he asked, surprised at the courtesy in his own voice. The watcher made no reply. The river spoke for him, a soft draw at the edge, the small clink of pebbles moving under water. The walker saw then what the watcher was watching, not the opposite bank, but the waterline itself, as if making sure no one mistook it. Memories gathered around the bend as memories do, a tale of a boy who went in after a cap and came out shivering and wiser, a sheep swept from her feet and rescued by swearing, a ferryman who worked here before there was work for a ferryman. The walker had not thought of these stories in years. He saw them now as if his mind were a pond taking back its reflections. A week later he brought bread for the ducks and set half the loaf on the stone near the watcher's place. It felt foolish. He did it anyway. The bread was gone in the morning. Ducks can do that. But the stone felt warm to his palm, as if late sun had lingered there too long for the season. One evening, a group of lads came down from the road, with talk too loud for the hour. They were not bad lads, only the kind who consider the river a dare. One moved toward the old ford, boots careless on the slick stones. The watcher turned its head. The lad stopped as if a cold finger had touched his collar. "You all right, Tom?" his friend said. "Thought I saw—" He shook himself, laughed, and they went off along the path, their voices falling naturally half a note lower. The first snow came soft. The walker went out early to see the row in white, and stood by the bend to watch the river's slow steam. Footprints marked the path, his own from 3 steps back, a fox's neat dashes, a heron's hieroglyphs. Between them, where the watcher had stood each night, the snow was untroubled, not blank exactly, but kept. He had told no one who would laugh the wrong way, but news finds its proper ears. An old woman who wore her shawl like a badge said a man had once kept watch there by duty, a mill hand or a carter or some such, who saw folk home after the late shift when the ford ran high. He'd stand where they'd see him first, she said, and shake his head if the river had its temper on. Didn't say much. Never needed to. "Did he drown?" the walker asked, before remembering he'd promised himself not to ask that. "Not that I ever heard," she said briskly. "He went on, the way people do. That's not the point." "What is?" "That the ford moved and he didn't. You'll find that with the best sort. They keep their posts. The river thawed and froze and thawed again. One night wind hustled down the lane and shoved at the walker's coat as if to get him home. The watcher did not bend. He stood exactly there, square to the water, telling people with his being where not to be. For a lark, the walker took one deliberate step toward the slick stones. The walker turned, not angry, only very sure. And the walker found he had already changed his mind. Spring cleaned the edges of things. Lambs bleated their bright question marks into the air. The walker came late from a friend's and felt for the first time in months the lack of the watcher's shape at the bend. He stopped, surprised by the emptiness. The river ran as usual. Reeds made their small applause. He waited, feeling the daftness gather like mist. "You did your job," he said to the air. "All right." He dropped a coin on the stone, not payment, not a bribe, only a token the size of a promise, and went home. In the morning, the coin was there still, with a wet ring around it as if someone had lifted it, considered its weight, and put it back carefully where the river could not quite reach. If you find yourself walking the Colne after dark and stop where the path widens and the water slows, do not be surprised if you stand a little straighter. Some posts are kept without pay. Some warnings are given without words. When the rains came in earnest, the river wrote its opinions across the meadow in quick, brown handwriting. The modern bridge held, as it always did, but the old stones of the ford showed themselves like vertebrae under thin skin. The walker stood with his hands buried in his pockets and watched a dog consider the crossing, reconsider, and look about for adult supervision. The watcher inclined its head, barely, and the dog, who had good sense, trotted back to its people as if it had meant to do so all along. Another evening he found a bunch of cow parsley laid on the stone by the bend, the hollow stems drinking a little of the river's breath. No note, no need of one. He sat a while and watched gnats make choreography above the shallows. The watcher did not move, but the air around it felt tidier, as rooms do just after someone has smoothed the bed.